Heartwarming encounter. After 5 minutes at her table, his incredible revelation changed everything. The storm raged outside, lightning splitting the dark sky while thunder crashed like a war drum. Inside the small diner, the atmosphere was warm and cozy, but tension hung thick in the air. Sarah stood behind the counter, wiping down the countertop, her heart heavy but her spirit unbroken. She was a single mother, waitress, and warrior, juggling 2 jobs and 2 kids, all while grieving her late husband, a proud veteran. Every day was a fight. Bills piled up like dirty dishes, and the gnawing worry about her family's future rarely left her. That day, the diner had been almost empty, the usual chatter of small-town life muted against the storm. Just as she began to feel the weight of her despair, the bell over the door chimed. In walked a man with unkempt hair and eyes that spoke of past battles fought in boardrooms. Tom. He looked worn and defeated, but there was a flicker of resilience in his gaze. He slipped into a booth, rain-soaked and weary from life's relentless storms. Sarah placed a steaming plate of meatloaf in front of him. Their eyes met. "This looks amazing," he said, a hint of gratitude lifting his voice. She smiled, the kindness genuine. Tom began to share stories of his former life, a successful entrepreneur who had built communities and lifted families. As he spoke, a sudden recognition lit up Sarah's face. That name Tom had appeared in old articles. He was once a beacon of hope in town. Now he was just another lost soul. Before she could delve deeper into her memories, chaos erupted as a frantic family burst through the door, breathless and terrified. Their voices collided in a wave of desperation, pleading for any assistance to prevent eviction. Sarah's heart sank. She felt torn, the familiar weight of grief pressing on her chest as she considered each family's needs, her own children at home relying on her as she struggled to keep them fed and clothed. Yet, as Tom continued to share his vision of creating a community hub where meals would be served, jobs would be offered, support for families would thrive, hope began to flutter like a sparrow in Sarah's chest. This man, once a pillar of strength, was now revealing ideas that could lift the burden off her shoulders and countless others. Could she dare to believe in this chance for rejuvenation? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just then, Tom leaned forward, the spark of determination in his gaze dimming against the weight of his next words. "I helped that family long ago, back when I had everything." The revelation crashed over Sarah, an emotional tidal wave that threatened to sweep her under. This man, once at the helm of a thriving business, had fallen, just as she feared she might. Her heart clenched painfully. Could she risk helping him while fighting to keep her own family afloat? As the storm howled outside, Sarah's world tilted on the precipice of transformation. Her choice loomed, a shadow in the corner of her mind. Would she take the chance for something greater, or cling to her immediate fears? The tension in the diner buzzed, a mix of crisis, hope, and the profound meaning of community echoing in her heart. What would she decide? The future hung uncertain, inviting them both to step boldly into the storm. A silence settled between them, thick with possibilities and doubt. The storm outside raged on, but Sarah felt as if a wall of sound had built around their booth. All she could hear was the rapid thumping of her heart against her chest. Tom's eyes bored into hers, and she sensed that despite the chaos swirling around them, something profound was shifting. "Sarah?" Tom's voice broke her reverie. "What do you think?" Her mind raced, unsure of how to articulate the whirlwind of emotions bottling up inside her. She wanted to say something reassuring, something hopeful, but her thoughts were a jumbled mess of fear and longing. "I want to believe in this, Tom. I really do," she finally managed to say, the words tasting bittersweet on her tongue. "But how? How can we help so many without losing ourselves in the process?" Tom leaned back, a weary sigh escaping him. "I've been down that road. Trust me, I understand the fear." His voice dropped to a whisper, fraught with honesty. "But I also know what it's like, how fulfilling it is to lift others up while you're holding on by a thread. When I had everything, I thought I was invincible. It took losing it all to realize the strength found in connection and support. Sarah stifled a sob, shaking her head barely above a whisper. But how do I do that? I have my kids to think about. They need me to be there. They need to see you fighting for something bigger, Tom replied, his eyes exuding a fierce passion she had not noticed before. They need to see a mother willing to step into the storm to create a better future. You're not just doing this for you. You're planting seeds of hope for them and for the community. Imagine what could blossom. As he spoke, images invaded her mind, visions of a community buzzing with laughter, children playing, neighbors working together, and families thriving. A spark ignited within her, pushing back against the shadows of doubt. What if we did something small first? She suggested, the words flowing more easily now. A community meal, maybe for families that are struggling? Just to see if there is cohesion? Absolutely. Tom's enthusiasm surged, lighting up his demeanor. We can set it up right here, in your diner. It's already a gathering place. I can help spread the word. We just need to take that first step. Suddenly, the storm outside seemed to transition, as if mirroring the change within her. The thunder roared less violently. The raindrops began to thin, and amid the torrential downpour, she began to feel a warmth enveloping her heart. This could be the beginning. Yet, just as hope danced in her thoughts, the front door swung open once more. A young woman with tear-streaked cheeks stumbled in, gasping for breath, dragging a small child behind her. Please, the woman cried, her voice raw and desperate. I need help. Sarah's heart lurched. This was exactly the kind of scenario she feared. Her instincts screamed to protect her children and herself first. And yet, the flicker of newfound courage in her ignited a flash of determination. Should she step forward or retreat into the safety of her own struggles? With Tom's watchful gaze upon her, she felt both vulnerable and stronger than ever, standing at the edge, ready to leap into the fray. She took a deep breath, ready to respond. The weight of multiple lives hung in the air. Would she help, risking everything? Or would fear win yet again? The choice loomed before her like the storm outside, dark and turbulent, yet filled with the promise of change. How would she decide? The woman's voice cut through the din of the diner, pulling Sarah from her thoughts. She blinked, focusing on the stranger who stood trembling at the entrance, fear radiating off her. The small child beside her clutched her hand, wide-eyed and frightened, swaying as if they were still stuck in the storm outside. Please, the woman begged again, desperation clawing at her voice. I'm scared. I can't go back out there. Tom shifted in his seat, concern etching lines across his forehead. Sarah could feel her heart thundering in her chest, mirroring the tempest still battering the diner windows. A battle raged within her, a primal instinct to shield her own children from potential danger, vying with the urge to help a fellow human in distress. Come sit down. Sarah finally found her voice, trembling but resolute. Can I get you something warm? The woman hesitated, the weight of her situation obvious. Then she nodded, tears spilling over her cheeks. We need a safe place. As they slid into the booth, Tom moved to grab some extra napkins from the counter. His attentiveness more than just kindness, it felt like resolve. Sarah's mind whirled as she poured steaming coffee for the woman, wishing she could do more. She offered the child a playful smile, trying to shine a light in the shadow of anxiety hovering over their table. What is your name? Sarah asked gently as she set the drink in front of the woman. Emily, came the barely whispered reply. Her eyes darted around the diner, wary, overshadowed by the storm raging outside, and perhaps her own circumstances. This is Liam. Hey buddy, Sarah said softly to Liam, crouching slightly to meet his gaze. You can have some hot chocolate if you like. Liam's eyes brightened, and for the briefest moment, fear slinked away. Yes, please. Tom returned with the napkins and a gentle smile for the two. We're all safe here for now. Let us take a breath together, he encouraged, gesturing to the window where rain still poured but the thunder had quieted to a distant rumble, like the end of a bad dream. The storm outside started to feel metaphorical, an echo of the life Emily had just run from. Sarah studied her closely. The woman's hands shook as she wrapped them around her coffee, steam rising like fragile hopes. What happened? Sarah dared to ask, her heart aching for Emily and Liam. She needed to know if they were safe, if her small act would mean something to this family in crisis. Emily took a shuddering breath, glancing at Liam, who now quietly sipped his drink. Sarah could see the turmoil in Emily's eyes, a mother's pain clawing at her insides. My partner. He's angry. He doesn't even care about us anymore. Before the words fully sank in, Sarah's resolve hardened. This was bigger than a community meal. It was about safety, support, and embracing the unknown. Listen, Sarah said, her voice steady. You're safe here. We're going to help you. As Emily's shoulders relaxed, a glimmer of hope sparkled in her weary eyes. It felt as if the storm around them was starting to wane, replaced by the warmth of connection. Tom nodded gravely. We'll find a way to get you and Liam the help you need, step by step. Within the chaos of the diner, a new kind of storm erupted, a storm of compassion, igniting an unanticipated journey for them all. Sarah felt her heart swell. She could be a part of something larger. It wasn't just about taking a leap anymore. It was about lifting others while finding her own footing. Yet, as that thought began to crystallize in her mind, the front door swung open one last time. A man, tall and imposing, appeared in the doorway, scanning the room with fierce discernment. Emily. His voice boomed over the din, sending a chill down Sarah's spine. I know you're in here. This wasn't over. The stakes were higher than she'd ever expected. Would she stand her ground, or would fear grip her once more? The air thickened with tension as the man stepped inside, water glistening off his dark coat. He was unapologetically tough, his face weathered and shadowed, a storm coiling just beneath his skin. Sarah felt every heartbeat echoing inside her. It pulsed through her bones, rattling nerves that had just begun to settle. Emily. He called again. The name hung heavy in the diner, drawing everyone's attention. Sarah's heart raced. She instinctively shifted closer to Emily and Liam, their safety now intimately tied to her own courage. Emily's breath quickened, her eyes wide with fear, darting from the man to Sarah, seeking an ally. It's okay, Sarah whispered, her voice soft yet firm. You don't have to go back to him. Who is he? Tom asked, his brow furrowed. He stood beside Sarah, an unwavering support, his every muscle tense, as if ready to spring into action. Emily swallowed hard, her voice trembling. My husband, he hasn't been right for a while. The admission hung in the air like a water droplet poised to fall. Liam, blissfully sipping his hot chocolate, was blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around him. But that sweetness was a shard of normalcy in a night that felt anything but. I won't let him hurt you. Emily, Sarah promised, searching for the words, feeling the weight of every decision heavy on her chest. She felt a fire ignite in her, a fierce protectiveness she had known before, the kind that surged when her own children were in danger. The man stepped further in, aggressively scanning the diner, eyes landing on Emily. I'm not going to hurt you, he shouted, frustration boiling in his tone. You cannot run from me. This is insane. Emily flinched, the sound of his voice lashing against her resolve. She gripped her coffee cup like a lifeline, the warmth radiating up her fingers stark against the chill of anxiety that crept in. Tom assumed a defensive stance, putting himself between Emily and the man, a steady figure against the chaos unraveling around them. Leave her alone, he said, but his voice faltered ever so slightly. Is that your plan? The man sneered. Hiding in a diner with her son? You think they'll help you? They don't know anything. Who says? Sarah snapped back, the spark of determination igniting into a flame. They know enough. They know you're threatening her, and I won't let that happen in front of my kids, or anyone. You need to leave. The diner patrons were watching, some whispering. A sense of solidarity permeated the tension. They were no longer just bystanders. They were witnesses, united in their disbelief at this moment unfolding before them. I won't let you take her, Sarah declared, glancing at Emily's pale features, imploring her to trust. Whatever has happened, Emily, we're here. You don't have to face this alone. With that, a flicker of resilience sparked in Emily's eyes. Liam looked up at his mother, seeing her strength, unknowingly mirroring it in his childlike way. She straightened up, determination starting to replace fear, but just as hope began to bloom, an unsettling grin spread across the man's face. You think this is over? You have no idea what I can do. His voice trembled with an eerie calm, brimming with a dark promise. Frustration and fear pulsed in Sarah's veins. Standing her ground was crucial now, but deep down she knew they were still on thin ice. Every decision they made a potential trigger for a greater storm. That a rush of thoughts surged through her mind. What if he wouldn't back down? What if he had connections beyond this diner? The questions surged like the rising wind outside. "Sarah," Tom said quietly as he exchanged a glance with her, the unspoken understanding weaving between them. They were in this together. Just then, she caught movement from the corner of her eye. A woman in the back booth rose, slowly making her way toward them, clutching her phone tightly. A fire pierced through the tension, and it was clear she was ready to act, her expression determined. "Wait," the woman shouted, her voice steadier than Sarah had expected. "You're not alone, Emily. I'm here to help. We can do something together." As Sarah felt the collective strength of those in the diner, a question loomed larger than the storm outside. Would this newfound alliance be enough against a wall of anger and control? The moment hung thick, full of possibilities yet shrouded in uncertainty. But all Sarah could do was wait, watch, and stand ready. The man's laughter echoed in the confined space of the diner, a dark sound that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. "Help? You think you can take her from me?" He took a step forward, eyes flashing like lightning in a brewing storm. Emily shrank against Tom, the fear pouring off her in waves. "Back away," Tom ordered, never losing his composure. His stance was firm, a barrier between Emily and her husband. Sarah admired his courage, knowing how much was on the line for everyone. "You really don't know who you're dealing with, do you?" The man sneered. "You've all made a terrible mistake." His gaze shifted, probing the faces that had rallied around them. The woman who stood now, her phone ready. He zeroed in on her. "And you? What makes you think you can save her?" "I know what you've done," the woman replied, shoulders squared, voice unwavering. "And I won't let you bully her anymore." She spoke with a raw conviction, meeting his gaze without flinching. Sarah felt a surge of gratitude for her. Maybe this woman held the key to turning the tide. Could they form a united front strong enough to protect Emily? The diner held its breath. Whispers merged into uncertainty, like a tide pulling back before a wave. People exchanged furtive glances, concerned for their own safety, yet drawn into the chaos unfolding before them. "Please," Emily pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just want to be free from all this." The man's expression flickered, a crack in his hardened facade. "You think running will fix things?" He countered, though uncertainty laced his words. "I'll hunt you down. You'll never be free." In that moment, the woman's phone lit up, illuminating her determined expression. "We're not here to run. We're here to stand. You can't hold her against her will. Watch me." He shot back, his voice rising. But there was something different now. The power dynamic had shifted, and he felt it, the weight of his threats lessening in the face of resolve from this small group. Tom shifted, a subtle motion that kept eyes on him, ready to defend if needed. "She's not a possession," he stated firmly. "You don't own her, and you can't keep her if she wants to leave." Emily looked at them, her eyes wide, vulnerability conflicting with the glimmer of newfound hope. Then the diners started to rally. "Let her go?" Someone shouted from the back, a voice from the shadows. It was a couple, hands clasped together, showing their unity against his oppressive presence. "Yeah, back off," came another voice, emboldened, followed by a chorus of murmurs echoing across the room. The tide of sentiment was unmistakably rising. Together, they formed a protective wall, yet the man's reaction was swift. "You don't know who you're facing." But before he could finish, Sarah surged ahead, cutting off his words. "You're just a man who has lost control. No more terror, no more threats." The fire in her chest blazed, pushing her forward. "We stand together, and we won't let you hurt her again." The man's bravado began to fade. He stepped back, the realization dawning on him that he was standing against a community, a force far greater than his own might. An ominous tension lingered as the moment turned into a standoff, every second stretching painfully. It was as if the air held its breath, waiting to see who would falter first. And just then, Emily took a step forward, her fingers trembling but steadier than Sarah had ever seen. "I choose freedom," she declared, her voice gaining strength, "and I will not go back." The man's eyes darkened, rage bubbling up like molten lava. "You think this is just about you, don't you? You'll regret this." But as wings of courage lifted, Sarah felt the ground beneath her feet steady. Just then, a loud clatter echoed from the kitchen. The diner door swung open, and another man appeared, his presence looming, eyes searching. "What is going on here?" he demanded, bringing with him an aura of authority that cut through the tension like a knife. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted again. Would this newcomer tip the balance further? Everyone turned, the anticipation thickening like the storm overhead. Sarah's heart raced. They were on the brink of something crucial. But what would unfold next? The man who had just entered the diner was Paul, the town sheriff. His badge glinted in the flickering fluorescent lights, giving him an air of authority that instantly commanded attention. The tension in the room shifted, a collective breath held, as if they were all waiting for him to unravel the knots that had tangled their reality. "Step away from her," Paul instructed, his voice calm yet firm. His eyes flitted between the man threatening Emily and the desperate faces gathered. "I'm not going to ask again." A flicker of doubt crossed the man's features. "You don't know what you're getting into, Sheriff," he spat. His bravado was crumbling, and it showed. Emily stepped even closer to Tom, the bubble of courage swelling around her as people whispered words of support, but Paul wasn't intimidated. He moved closer, placing himself as a wall between the man and Emily. "I've dealt with guys like you before," he said, his voice steady, "and I won't let you harm anyone here." Facing off with the sheriff, the man's confidence seemed to drain away, replaced with a simmering rage. "You're making a big mistake," he warned, his voice low and threatening. But the clamor of voices surrounding them only grew louder, a chorus of defiance that rattled the very walls of the diner. Emily looked around, eyes wide like saucers. She had stepped into the light, and with each passing second, the shadows that had haunted her began to fade. Watching her, Sarah felt a fierce sense of pride. This wasn't just about Emily's liberation anymore. It was about the power of a community rising together. Bolstered by Paul's authority, more voices joined the fray. "She deserves to be heard," someone shouted, voices spilling over one another as the crowd rallied around Emily. "Let her go?" Another called, fists raised defiantly. The man's face flushed, a mix of disbelief and fury. "You think you can intimidate me with sheer numbers?" he yelled. "Let me remind you, I didn't come here alone. You're all just making things worse for yourselves." Paul narrowed his eyes. "Let us find out," he countered. "I'm sure your friends out there in the parking lot wouldn't want to see you carried away in cuffs." He reached for his radio, poised to call for backup. Fear rippled through the crowd, a tangible thing. Sarah glanced at Emily, who was standing tall now, the fearful girl they'd all known slowly morphing into a fighter. "This is my life," Emily said, her voice strong. "I'm not going back. Not now. Not ever." The man scoffed, but there was a tremor in his voice. "You think you're safe just because he's here? You have no idea what I'm capable of. You only have power if we let you have it," shouted the woman who had defended Emily earlier, igniting yet another spark of unity that dawned on Sarah that the atmosphere in the diner had transformed. What once felt like a thunderstorm of chaos was now a rallying storm, one fueled by the strength of everyday people standing together for what was right. Hope sparked and flickered in every heart. Somewhere in the back, a woman began to chant, "Emily, Emily," and soon dozens took up the cry, the sound a roaring wave crashing against the man's defiance. But just as the tide was turning, a rustle outside the diner caught everyone's attention. The door flew open, and more figures stepped inside. The man's henchmen, faces twisted with the same malice, were now a grim part of this story. That was the moment everything hung in the balance. Would the solidarity hold? Would the connection they'd forged shatter against the reality of numbers and fear? As the din of voices echoed in the diner, Sarah felt the weight of the moment. What now? She wondered, fear prickling at her skin. Would the power of unity be enough to face this new challenge? The door slammed against the wall, and silence fell momentarily, an eerie stillness as the newcomers filled the entrance. The atmosphere shifted again, this time thick with uncertainty. The tension crackled like static before a storm, and all eyes moved to the men who had accompanied the original threat. They were built like bricks, muscle layered under black t-shirts, tattoos snaking up their arms, and expressions that told tales of violence without a single word. Paul stood his ground, the authoritative glare unwavering, while Emily's heart raced. She could feel the fear, yet something else surged within her, a fierce determination that wouldn't let go. "Back off, boys," Paul warned, his voice steady. "You're not welcome here. Who is going to stop us?" One of the henchmen scoffed, a malicious grin spreading across his face. The corrosion in his tone was sharper than a blade. But the crowd, emboldened by Emily's stand, remained a wall around her, a shield forged from their collective hope. Emily's friend Sarah stepped forward, fists clenched tight. "You may have come here just for one person, but look around you. You've got a whole town ready to fight you." The confidence of the henchman wavered, just for a second, caught off guard by the unexpected resistance. It was a flash of realization that they weren't the only ones holding power in that moment. The chant for Emily had risen again, echoing off the walls, its rhythm thumping against the tension like a heartbeat. "Emily, Emily." It became a mantra, a lifeline that connected them all. "I'm not afraid of you," Emily shouted, her voice growing stronger. The fire within her ignited, and the words poured out like a waterfall. "You may have tried to control me, but I've found my voice. I'm done being silent." The lead henchman narrowed his eyes, as if he were weighing his options. "You really think your little brave act is going to save you?" "We've got our orders." Paul stepped forward, channeling righteous fury. "Those orders mean nothing in the face of community. We protect our own here. You've underestimated who you're dealing with." At that moment, a voice rang out from the back. A woman, once quiet but now unyielding, countered, "Your orders lead to fear. But we choose connection. We choose to stand together." The tension split the room again, one group pressing forward with threats and bravado, the other holding steadfast, driven by unity. Emily could feel the weight of the crowd behind her, their solidarity lifting her spirit higher than it had ever been. But then, it happened. The lead henchman pulled out a knife, its blade catching the light just right. Gasps swept through the diner, and in that visceral moment, fear threatened to choke everyone's voice. Paul moved slightly, readying himself, but there was something new in Emily's eyes, of fierce resolve. She took a deep breath, stepping forward again. "Put it down," she commanded, and her voice rang. "You don't need to do this." The henchman faltered, his hand shaking, caught off guard by her confidence. "You think you can intimidate me?" Even he didn't seem to believe the words he was saying. "Not intimidate," Emily breathed, her heart pounding. "Inspire. We all want to be free. Free from fear, from hatred. Who are you really trying to protect?" Stunned silence filled the diner. The only sound was the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights. The henchman looked around, met the eyes of the people who had once hidden in fear, now gathering strength. A battle raged within him between the power he had known and the truth he hadn't seen. Then, just as he opened his mouth to speak, the ringing of Paul's radio shattered the tension. A voice crackled through, urgent and unyielding, reminding them all that help was on the way. "What are we going to do?" Sarah whispered urgently to Emily, eyes wide, her fingers trembling. Emily looked back at her friend, taking a deep breath. "We keep standing strong. We don't let fear take over, not now. Not ever." Would their newfound courage hold firm against the looming shadow of violence? Would the sheriff's arrival shift the balance? Or was this just the precipice before calamity? In that charged moment, everything hinged on what would happen next. The air hung heavy with anticipation. The lead henchman stared at Emily, his expression shifting like the last flicker of a candle fighting a strong wind. He lowered the knife slightly, the blade glinting ominously as it caught the light again. Fear and uncertainty danced in his eyes, mixed with the weight of Emily's gaze, a profound reflection of the storm he couldn't control. "Help is coming, and it won't be for you." Paul's voice resonated, pushing through the thrumming silence. The sound was like a battle cry, defiant and steady. Around the diner, people tightened their grip on one another, the warmth of unity defying the cold intent of violence. "Look at them," Sarah urged, nodding toward the townsfolk behind Emily. They stood united, a sea of faces determined not to back down. "They're not afraid of you. You are just a threat, an idea that can be pushed away." The henchmen took another step back, the weight of their resolve pressing down like a tangible force. The room buzzed with energy, each heartbeat synchronizing with the chant that had begun anew. "Emily, Emily." This time, it felt like an anthem, a call to arms that echoed deep in the recesses of collective memory. Emily took another brave step forward. You wield that knife, but you can't cut through this bond we share, she asserted. We're stronger than fear. So much stronger. For a brief moment, she saw vulnerability cross the henchman's face. It was fleeting, but it was there, a glimpse of a boy lost within a man. A choice hung in the air between them. Fight or let go. Maybe you should think about what you're doing, Emily added softly, her voice breaking slightly. This is not who you are. You have the power to change. No one wants to hurt you. The henchman's breath caught in his throat. The room held its breath with him, waiting for the inevitable crack, the moment when the facade would crumble. But if this was the moment when clarity struck, he needed more than words to carry him forward. Suddenly, the radio buzzed again, slicing through the tension. Paul moved instinctively closer to the door, listening intently. Sheriff S. en route, he said, relief washing over his features. But the henchman gripped the knife tighter, his eyes darting to the door. It's too late, he sneered, trying to recapture dominance. You think they can save you? No, Emily said firmly, stepping even closer, heart pounding in her chest. But they can give us a chance for justice, something you could even have for yourself. You can walk away from this. You don't have to do this. A flicker of something, hope, fear, or perhaps regret flickered in the henchman's steely gaze. A moment stretched painfully long, a silent battle raging within. Stay back, he barked suddenly, trying to regain control. I'm not afraid of, but before he could finish, the door flew open, and the sheriff stepped inside, his presence radiating authority. The whole diner shifted, many gasping, as he stepped between the crowd and the growing tension. You're surrounded, son, the sheriff said, his voice steady and commanding. Put the weapon down, and we can talk about this. You don't have to go down this path. Emily's heart raced. This was it. The moment hinged on a ripple of choices. Would the henchman surrender, seeing a glimmer of the future waiting for him? Or would despair take hold completely? No, he shouted, voice trembling, the knife quivering in his hand. Don't come any closer. The sheriff didn't move. Instead, he stared directly into the henchman's eyes, a reflection of the strength that could be won from vulnerability. The diner fell silent, and in that raw moment, everything hung in the balance as the chaos spiraled towards resolution. Emily felt a shiver of fear and hope murmur through her. Would they lose the battle, or would the evening take a turn toward a new dawn? In the quiet that followed, a single thought echoed: there was more to this than violence. But could they find the way through fractures of the heart before it was too late? The henchman shifted, his body trembling. The knife sparkled dangerously, but his grip wavered. Everyone in the diner held their breath, the weight of the moment pressing down like a heavy blanket. A flicker of doubt crossed his face, and Emily dared to hope. Talk, he whispered, the word barely escaping his lips. The sheriff took a step forward. That's it. Let us talk. You can put the knife down, and we can work through this together. No one else needs to get hurt. The other patrons exchanged anxious glances, fear still clinging to the air. But among them, a few dared to nod in encouragement. The energy in the room shifted, moving from anxiety to a hopeful tension. Emily took another careful step closer, her heart racing. You don't have to carry this alone. We're all here for you, even if it's hard to see right now. Whatever it is you've been through, you don't have to think it's hopeless. The henchman swallowed hard, his breath shaky. You don't know me, he choked out, his voice thick with emotion. But I want to, Emily said, her sincerity cutting through the noise. All of us want to understand. Every life has shadows, but it doesn't mean you can't find the light again. Paul shifted beside Emily, heart in his throat. This isn't who you are. You're not a monster. You're a person who made some wrong choices. But it doesn't mean you can't choose differently now. A sound escaped the henchman, half sob, half snarl. Then what? I go to jail? For what I've done? His eyes burned with a mixture of rage and despair. What is the point? People are scared of me, no? Sarah chimed in bravely, stepping closer, just a few feet away. We're here because deep down, we see you beyond the fear. We see the person who has lost. Hope sparked in the henchman's eyes, flickering with fierce intensity. For the first time, he looked less like a threat and more like someone in need. It was a painful realization, raw and aching. The sheriff took another step, lowering his voice to a reassuring tone. You're right. There will be consequences for what you've done, but you can choose how to face them. You can start now, the choice is yours. The knife trembled in his hand, the blade reflecting the dim light like a beacon of decision. Emily's heart raced, a mixture of hope and apprehension swirling inside her. This was the moment, the crossroads he faced. "Let us help you," she pleaded softly. "You can share your story, find a better path. All doors can open if you're willing to step through. But not while holding that knife." The henchman's breath hitched. The room hung in a thick silence, the world outside temporarily fading away. There was strength in vulnerability. She knew this now more than ever. He was not just a henchman. He was a human being filled with pain that begged to be released. Slowly, he raised his eyes to meet hers. What if his voice cracked? What if I can't? The sheriff's steadfast presence offered assurance. "You can. It starts by putting down the weapon. Show us who you really are." Emily felt tears prick her eyes as she remained focused on him. "We believe in you," she said, emotion ringing clear in her voice. Tentatively, almost as if in slow motion, the henchman's fingers relaxed. The knife slipped to the floor with a soft clatter, echoing like a gunshot in the silence. The collective sigh that raced through the diner was palpable, but the battle was far from over. As the sheriff moved closer to secure him, tension hung like fog. What lay ahead was uncertain, but for the first time that evening, a glimmer of possibility shined through. What would happen next? Could they truly guide him to freedom, or had they merely stepped into a new kind of danger? Emily's heart beat faster as she braced for the unfolding reality. She knew they had begun a long journey, but the question lingered: would they all emerge victorious, or would this act of hope lead to something darker? As the knife hit the tiled floor, the sound reverberated through the diner, a ghost of tension that seemed to lift with the subdued breaths of its occupants. The henchman stood frozen, as if in disbelief that he had just relinquished his power. His eyes darted to Emily, Tom, Sarah, and the sheriff, each echoing a mixture of relief and anticipation. "Help is on the way," Paul reiterated, his hand reaching slowly for the radio to call for backup now that the situation had shifted. "We're going to make sure you are okay." Every word he spoke grounded the room as the threat began to dissipate. Emily's heart raced, her mind racing ahead. She stepped closer, her voice softer, tempered with understanding. "You're not alone now. We'll all get through this together." The henchman's expression morphed, brows furrowing in uncertainty. "But what if I don't know how?" His voice trembled, a myriad of emotions encoding his features. "Then we'll help you figure it out," Tom said, a firm yet gentle hand grasping the man's shoulder. "You've started the hardest part by realizing you can change. We believe you can." A newly arrived voice interrupted from the back. The diner door swung open wide. Another law enforcement officer stepped in, bringing with them a team ready to support. Their arrival was like sunshine breaking through storm clouds, illuminating the room with hope. The atmosphere shifted again, less about fear and more about collective strength. With the newfound unity, Emily turned to the patrons gathered closer around her. They were no longer just witnesses, but participants in transformation. "This isn't just about one person. It's about all of us," she called, her voice echoing with newfound resolve. She looked around the room, at the weary, hopeful faces that had once been strangers but were now woven into her story. No one deserves to live in fear. No one should feel isolated. Let us break those chains together. "Yes," Sarah shouted, raising her cup of coffee, igniting the spirit of resilience. "We're a community. United, we can support each other." The group of patrons began to echo her words, their energy bubbling until it overflowed. A wave of affirmation washed over them, lifting spirits like hot air balloons sailing into the sky. "Together, together." The chant picked up steam, voices melding into a chorus of hope. The henchman blinked, processing the shift in energy. A glimmer sparked in his eyes, the icy walls crumbling into something more receptive. "I never thought I could change," he whispered, vulnerable as the crowd began to soften, feeling the shift in him, a strange sort of power unraveling the vortex of anger that had gripped him for so long. Paul stepped in as the new officer assessed the scene, ensuring everyone felt safe and heard. "Stay close to us," he instructed Emily and the others. "We'll move together." The henchman looked at Emily, a mix of gratitude and sorrow swirling in his chest. "I don't deserve this." Emily shook her head lightly. "You do. Every single person does. We all deserve a chance to find our way, and the first step is acknowledging the darkness in our lives, just as you did. With every glance exchanged, solidarity resonated in the diner as the realization dawned that, despite the storm both within and outside, they had chosen connection over adversity. A balm of courage surrounded them, and little by little, the storm calmed as the night flowed into morning. The diners began sharing their experiences, their struggles, how they, too, had felt lost at times. The conversations morphed into plans about how to work together and create spaces of support, ensuring that no one in their town felt left out or alone again. With the rising sun shimmering through greasy diner windows, Sarah, Tom, Emily, and the others shared a newfound commitment to create something beautiful from their pain, a community that was stronger together. This resolved it. They were not just individuals weathering their storms alone, but a collective force capable of transforming their world through compassion and support. I think it starts right here, Sarah said, motioning around the diner, where unity had been born against chaos. Let us start that community meal right away, gather everyone, and remind them they're not alone anymore. The joy was palpable. The anticipation bubbled like the coffee brewing at the diner, the warmth surging through as hope ignited the path ahead. With smiles and fiery determination shining in their eyes, they began to plan their first gathering, setting a new course in their lives. As shadows retreated and the dawn broke, they stood together, hearts empowered and resolute. They weren't just surviving, they were living. Now, let us rise and tackle the day, perhaps over hearty plates of food and words of encouragement. It was time to move forward, driven by a belief that together they could weather any storm heart to heart, hand in hand. So, to you, who have journeyed alongside them through the tumult and transformation, this is your call to action. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on more exclusive stories that will inspire. Hit that like button to feed the algorithm and let the world see that hope will always prevail. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming ending. It's essential. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Together, let us spread the light.